So first, we'll have medical observation done by the dermatologist at each center, who will collect descriptive clinical data, so the scars characteristic, the number, location, etc., using a medical checklist. Then we'll be selecting our participants using inclusion and exclusion criteria. And the tool will be document listing of CL patients and those included and the followed up. Then the qualitative study, so our study, which will be based on in-depth interviews, will be collecting history of CL infection, experience, perception by patients, the impact on their quality of life. We'll be using for that interviewer guide and audio recorder. Then for the data analysis, we'll use transcripts and their translation and the coding, and we'll be using in vivo software. And finally, I'm not sure this is a method, but since it's implementation research and we had the idea that we will be implementing program or some action. So we'll be using our findings to meet with stakeholders, especially the Ministry of Health, decision makers for involving better communication and psychological support in case management of CL. We're not respecting the good practices. For that, we will check the interview guide and validate it before starting data collection. We might face some investigators adding comments, and for this, interviewers should be trained. So to the good practices, but also to the collection of data. Data can sometimes not recorded or not accurately recorded due to maybe the equipment. So we should check this before, and the pilot phase will help for all these steps. Then for the transcription and translation, so we can find some transcription with investigators' interpretation. So this will be faced by training before, and member check. Inaccurate transcribing might be controlled by validation of transcription by external part. And sometimes you can find some names, and this will be ensured by the IDs. So finally, for the data analysis, we might face some technical problems of software. For this, we should check the quality and having a backup plan. Staff not qualified for data analysis, so should be trained before. Inaccurate data and conclusion, this can be compared with other studies and literature, and consulting peers and experts. And finally, for the data storage, we didn't think that it was included, so we didn't think about it. But we have an IT team and data management, like a team in Pasteur Institute. That's all.
No, this is the first team that brought up translation.
So for our study, so it will be conducted in dialect, so Tunisian language. Then the transcription, for us, it will be easier in French than English for the writing. So, but
Arabic, French, and finally to English for the papers, reports.
But the transcription will be in French.
Yes.
I have a concern about that. For the qualitative data quality, I think it is very important to have transcript in the original language that the researcher used for the data collection. If there is a interest and also for purpose for translating the transcript, you can do maybe not the overall transcript that you have. You can translate some of the transcript in order to have checks with other experts and researchers. So don't need to translate all the transcript. So I think why we need to remain in the original language that we use is actually about the context matter. I think when we translate into other language, there is a risk somehow to that happen that can be decrease the authentically as well as the rich information about the context. So that's the things that we should consider. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for bringing this up. But the transcription is in the original language. Translation is another step, and yeah, we will not translate everything, only the things we find important and for.
And accordingly, to say that collection will be in the original language, transcription will also be into that same language, and that there will be only minimum translation. So I think then it becomes
yeah, we
clear.
have this in protocol. We have everything.
Okay. Okay.
Just here.
Okay. Okay.
What if like the qualitative data is done like in consortium? Is it need to be like translated all so in English so the PI can understand?
From my experience, and that should be someone that responsible for the data collection and then data analysis. It should be the people in the consortium that are familiar with the context. So that's why in the data analysis, the one that really understand about the context should be responsible for the overall process. And then if there is a need to discuss with other institutions in the consortium that in some of the transcript should be translated into other language to be shared and then discuss about the quality of the information, something like that. But I think it's not necessary to translate all of the transcripts. But maybe it is different case if, for instance, the PI is someone, for instance, then the study is in Yogyakarta, and then the PI is from Australia, for instance. One of the requirement actually, the PI somehow should learn about the local language a bit, and then have a research assistant who are familiar with the context and the language, so that during the process the PI can understand the context somehow. So I think that's my opinion.
You refer to our current study with the polio. We have this consortium of 8 countries try to understand how the polio eradication program from the qualitative perspective, the narrative. So the PI is from the Johns Hopkins. But in each country, we also collect qualitative data. So that would be difficult to achieve. One PI to learn 8 different languages. So in this context, what do you suggest?
Yeah, I will suggest that for each country, it should be the one that responsible for the overall process of the qualitative data.
Just to share my experience with translation, just the informed consent, like let's say, which is like a 4-page document. You first write in English, translate it to the local language and back translate and see. You will be surprised how the information is lost. And that's very structured writing. I mean, in a in-depth interview, in a focus group discussion, it's all random thoughts and things that are coming into. It's not like in clear written sentences. So if you try translating and back translating them, the whole meaning will be lost. So I think we need to be very careful when we are looking at translation and qualitative studies, and just try to keep it to the minimum. As Ari said, maybe at a certain point in time when you have everything, codes, themes, everything emerging, and you want to share it with others and things like that, but not start doing it from scratch.
So I think what's useful is to know the ideal. So the ideal is The researcher himself does the interviews, the researcher himself transcribes, and researcher himself does the analysis, the same person, because in qualitative research, the researcher is the tool. So that's the ideal. Of course, it's not possible every time, and that's why we have others. But if you know that that's the ideal, then you will try to put in checks to make sure it somehow corrects for the deviations you are making. The same thing with the translations. So ideally, it ought to be done within the local language, but again, there are limitations, and we do work across different languages and contexts. But once you know what the ideal is, then you will correct for it.
Lost sugar level very low.
We have problems both with hypoglycemia and postprandial disease.
Okay, so thank you very much. Big applause. And now, 1 hour break. So, yeah. So, 1:35 we gather again here. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.
So before we start with another exercise, we will have also an exercise. So an exercise, physical exercise before intellectual exercise. Okay, let's have a dance. Yeah, let's have a dance. Mas Uta is still preparing the video. What we have to do is just following the video. Yeah, following the video. So please stand up.
Is this one turned on? Do you need this one?
Yes.
Can I turn it on?
Yes. So it's not salsa. Maybe tomorrow we will have salsa. This is the most simple one. 3, 2, 1. Five, four, 4.
much applause for us. So I hope that this enough for motivate us to have another exercise. Now we move into exercise 5. Yeah, I would like all of you in a group have discussion using this template for the exercise 5 about key step deliverables and WBS. WBS, work breakdown structure. So please take a look at that template. So this is the instruction. First, maybe if you need, you can refer to the video in the module and then refresh the perception, your perception in the group about what is key deliverable and what is the key steps. And then after that, and then break down the key steps into activities. Yeah. So first you discuss about what are the deliverables, what are the key steps, and then break down that into activities, and then put the timeline of the activities. So you have a matrix like this. Yeah. You have metric like this, you have the step or deliverables, and then you break down into activities. Sometimes even you need more detailed activities called tasks, because there's something that you can divide into your stuff in the research project. And put the timeline like this. So you can just block or put the sign for the timeline. And after that, link that matrix to the organization breakdown structure. So this one, maybe you think you need someone with certain expertise. You make a matrix like this, and then think about the position in the organization in your project, as well as the tasks. What actually in the tasks? So you can somehow link the tasks with the Tassion that you mentioned in the Gantt chart. Yeah? And after that, you can then discuss about the study site checklist. So this is on the table that help us to prepare what kind of specific preparation that you need. So put it in here, for instance, and then just put some explanation with whether this is needed, yes, no, or not applicable. So we try to structure like this, but feel free if you add some categories in the study site checklist. If you need, you can add that. So that's all, and we hope that you can manage the group work within 1 hour. Yeah, within 1 hour. And then after that, we can have a discussion. Okay, so now it's 10 to 2 p.m. So I will give 1 hour. So we start the discussion with on 10 minutes to 3. Yeah. Okay. Is it clear for the instruction? Okay. So please go ahead with your group work, and we always be here to facilitate you. Yes. What is the key steps and deliverable related to that study objective, and then break down into activities and etc. Okay. Okay, everything is clear, I hope. Okay, so let's start the group work.
We'll be presenting our data management plan first. We'll try to be fast so we can still accommodate the others while we're waiting. other one. Okay, so there's a slide prior to that. Yeah, one back there. So. Right. Yeah. So here's the process. The first process that we identified is when we recruit in the recruitment of malaria patients. So here's the data that we are we want to look at. So we want to see the malaria patient log sheet, and this is our collection tool for that. We'll interview the patients coming in and check their temperature. And for data processing, so that's the log sheet already. It will be handwritten, so we just need to scan that. And then the storage will be at the health facility, but the scan will be at RITM, and the quality assurance, it has to be attested or signed by the health worker. The next is the signed informed consent. So we'll have the ICF, and for processing, it has to be verified for completeness prior to filing, and then it has to be properly filed in a locked cabinet. And the next is the list of participants. So we should have a participant registry log, and for processing, there has to be, of course, encoding, assignment of participant unique ID number, and the generation of line list of anonymized participants. And of course, this will be stored in a locked cabinet, the log of participants. And also, sorry, I forgot to put it here, it will also be stored electronically. So quality assurance, only PI and data manager shall be provided access to the list. The next is the G6PD screening. So we want this data, table showing number of negative and positive results of G6PD screening. The same with the socio-demographic profile, hemolytic anemia incidence, and a table showing antibody testing. So the storage shall be in locked cabinets. CRFs filled up shall be scanned and backed up electronically. Tables shall be stored electronically and backed up. And quality assurance here are limited access, or I think some of these are also ethical considerations. And we need to indicate version dates of tables for the electronic copies. And there has to be limited access to the electronic tables. And we put this step because we have a Department of Biostatistics and Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics. So we will give them some of our, like an anonymized list of our data for validation. So that's our data management plan. Should we proceed to, the next one? Yeah. Okay, Charm will present the schedule of activities. The schedule of activities and the responsibilities of the research team.
Slideshow is cutting off. It's cutting off.
I will just read. Hello? Okay, I will just read the timeline of activities. So first, we have the ethics review. So this will be done in 2 months. And then procurement of supplies for 2 months. Coordination. 2 months as well, 1 month, and meeting with other stakeholders, so 1 month, training of all staff, 1 month, and pilot testing, so 1 month. Pilot testing includes the revision of any documents or any forms that will be used that we found that needs to be revised or needs to be enhanced. And for the next conduct of the study, this will take 6 months. So next is the recruitment of participants, 6 months as well. And then sample collection, 6 months. Testing of samples, 9 months. So for this is 9 months since we want to catch the antibodies. So usually the antibodies go down after 3 months. So the testing for antibodies will be done on the first day of the collection, and then the 3rd month. And then after, testing of testing of samples, 9 months, monitoring of patients, 6 months, encoding of results, 3 months, data processing and analysis, 1 month, consolidation of results, 1 month as well, writing of reports, 1 month, and presentation of results, 1 month, and writing of final paper. For the research team, the duties and responsibilities, so we have the PI or principal investigator. Qualification or expertise is at least 3 years of experience in doing research in malaria. Responsibility is to oversee project accomplishment and writing of reports of the project. And then next is the physician. This physician should be a licensed medical doctor or general practitioner. She or he will supervise the diagnosis and treatment in malaria patients, and also in charge of handling adverse events if there is. And then medical technologies, licensed medical technologies in charge of blood extraction, G6PD screening, serology, and hemoglobin count, based in the study site, and responsible for monitoring or follow-up of study participants, especially those participants that cannot go down from the mountain to the health facility anymore. So they are the one responsible going to their houses, so they can check them if they're taking their medication properly, or if they're having adverse events or adverse side effects of medication. So any other questions?
Okay, please, Candice. Yes, please. Any comments, question? Dr. Doni?
Okay, if I can ask clarification in the data management, if you can just show that slide up again. This one. So I realize that it's useful to think of the output data, but instead of that, if you can think of method and what tool you're going to use. So I see some confusion with the tools that you've put there. So an interview, for example, is not a tool, it's a method. So the distinction between what is a method, what is the tool you're using, how you're going to use it, and then what kind of checks you're going to put in place. So I still find some confusions here with the way that you've put it. Some of the quality assurance things like, checking data entry, making sure that the data that you've entered in is correct, the data collected is correct. Those kind of things have not come through in quality assurance. So you have, yes, log sheets signed by somebody, but how do you know that what they have collected is good or not? So those kind of things have to be thought through in quality assurance. So so if you can just spend some more time thinking this through, the method, the tool you're using. So the tool for an interview is an interview guide and the audio recording. So those are what you're going to be using, yeah? Similarly with for example, a registry, the log, so it would be a form that you would use to collect the information. So that what you use to collect information is the tool. So the method, the tool, and then that will make you think of how you want to assure quality in terms of what kind of checks you can put into place to make sure that the data is good.
Any other comments? Yes, Farah.
I just look at this and I see signed informed consent and it says not applicable quality assurance. So is it something that we don't have to quality check? Applicable there.
I put that. I'll take responsibility for it. Yeah, because we put in data processing the verification of completeness, but yeah, we had to. I think we missed one column there of the method and the collection tool.
So if you think through the method and the kind of information, the signed informed consent wouldn't come here. Your signed informed consent, because you're not using that data. It's not a data collection tool. That's a process you have to do to ensure that ethics is maintained, but it's not a data collection tool.
Yeah, so if we put the method in, I'm sure we can put something in the quality assurance. Yeah.
Could you show the responsibility metric? Okay. Yes, this is the clarification. Do you think that financial stuff is needed here in the project? Someone that have a specific expertise in finance?
In finance?
Yeah.
In finance. Actually, in our practice, principal investigator is the one in charge in the finance. It is in her discretion if she wants or he wants to hire a specialist or a financial advisor. But nonetheless, our finance is a responsibility of the PI.
Okay. So I think you should add about that in the responsibility. Any other questions, clarifications? Okay, thank you very much. Very good progress. Who will be the next? Ghana?
We had to, it couldn't go fit on the screen, so we had to actually take a snap. So I'll just sort of take you through what we have here. One of the steps, the main steps, is to get an IRB approval. And some of the tasks there will involve writing the proposal, the budget, and identification of essential documents. It also involves community entry, meetings with identifiable groups within the community, such as the food vendors, teachers, and other community leaders. And all these will be done within the first 3 months. After that, the next step will be data collection. That will start from the 4th month. After, hopefully, we hope that within that time, we would have had approval, ethical approval. Now, after data collection, from the 5th to, for this, we just decided to use 11 months to illustrate. We'll start from the 5th to the 7th month, 3 months. But in reality, it will take longer, yes. So for the systematic review, the tasks will involve data retrieval and storage before analysis. For the interviews, interviewing as well as transcription as part of the tasks. And for the survey, questionnaire completion, and the data entry. And the next step after that is the main data analysis. For the interviews, thematic analysis will have to be done. For the survey, statistical analysis will have to be performed. The next major step will be dissemination and policy advocacy. This will involve review meetings with groups, community leaders. That will be hopefully the last quarter. And monitoring ongoing activities would start from the beginning to the end of the project. And then we try to evaluate the last 3 months. We also try to have a review meeting to get feedback from the community within the last 3 months. Dissemination of findings, as well as advocacy at the community and policy levels will also take place in the last quarter, or the last 2 months. The responsibility matrix, the investigators, their expertise, their position, and their tasks. So the task of the team leader was to have an overall supervision and management of the project. And we are assuming that for this exercise, this project is relatively small. So issues about finances will be handled by the PI. Okay, one of the team members will also be responsible for coordinating the field work and then taking part in the quantitative analysis. A statistician who is part of the team will be responsible for performing the statistical analysis for the survey. Another team member will be responsible for conducting the systematic reviews as well as the qualitative data analysis. We would have somebody with expertise in data management, a data manager, who will be responsible for managing the project data. And then we shall have some field workers, people who are experienced in data collection, and they're responsible for doing this as well as entering the qualitative data. All right, so the checklist. Okay, so for the lab, okay, it's so we don't need any lab. We don't need any lab equipment actually, so that's an error. The document, the standard operating procedures, yes, data collection forms, and for human resources, you hire the staff, the project manager as well, data manager as well as the field workers. And there will be contracts as well. But I wasn't sure if accident insurance is applicable and what we tend to do. So it's not applicable, yes. And then training, yes. Approvals, yes. That has been said already. Contracts and agreement, confidentiality issues with field workers. Software, we've mentioned NVivo, SPSS data, and I think for the systematic review, somebody suggested the software. Yes, so that will also be part of it. And then a laptop to be used in keeping this data. Right, so that's it, and thank you.
So please, any comments, question? Yes, Farah.
No, maybe you should consider having it. Because if you, I don't know how it's in Ghana, but if you're going to a slum, maybe it's very dangerous for the study team. So you might need, at least, for example, we have insurance for the study team because anything can happen, and then who will be responsible for what happened to them? So that's my.
Okay.
Gantt chart. Okay, so my question is related to data collection. If I remember right from the previous discussions, you said the systematic review and the qualitative study is the one that is going to help you design your survey questionnaire.
Yes.
So they cannot be concurrent.
Yes.
Right? So you first of all need to look at your systematic review, get your interviews, everything analyzed, and then come up with something. So the analysis of that will move early on, and this survey that you will conduct will have to move later. But now I see they are all clubbed together. So these are the kind of things that you need to, one of the things in quality, I mean, I have no clue about your study, is only about internal consistency. So if we said something earlier, we need to be consistent with that later as well. So that was one thing. Then in the first one about your IRB approval, when I read it, you have your proposal, you have your tools, but you never said about submission or the time for approval, but you put the heading also as an IRB approval, and you said you get it in 3 months' time. So I worry a little bit. I mean, is it possible to get it in 3 months? Should you also include submission? Will there be some back and forth? Do you have to allow some time for it? So that is also something that I found maybe needs to be addressed. Yeah?
I just wanted to make one general comment with Gantt charts and also for the previous one. I think we're very optimistic when we put these together and say 3 months we'll be able to do data correction, 3 months we'll be able to do analysis. It's always better to err on the side of a little more. It's good to finish well in time rather than to be struggling with timelines. So give yourself enough time. Don't be in a hurry to try and finish everything unless you're really pressed for time. Yeah, that's just a general comment.
I have comment as well on the responsibility matrix. Yes, about the field workers, because you have systematic review and then qualitative and then quantitative. I think you have to think about more than one field worker here. So yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Kinds of expertise, because what a systematic literature review requires is also very different from qualitative, and yeah.
Any other suggestion? Yes.
And for that study site, I mean, we just gave that as an example. The list, can you go one slide? Yeah. This is just, you know, one of the previous teams prepared and we thought we just share it. But a lot of things may not even be applicable to you. Maybe there are some other things that are totally applicable to you, which we have also missed. So that's why I went around telling, don't just follow these. These are just a sample document. You should really, yeah. So.
Okay, thank you.
So next, who will be the next? Yes, please, Tunisia.
So for our study management, we have some deliverables. First of all, the protocol finalizations, and it takes 2 months to finalize the protocol and to have the IRB approval. The second is the study team training, and we need 2 months for this task to have a qualified team. The third deliverable is the pilot phase for the protocol and for interviewing and to check all these steps. Second, after that, the identification and the consent of participants, and it takes 1 month for consulting healthcare workers and contact of participants. For the data collection, it takes 3 months for consenting patients, conducting the interview, transcription, and translation. After the data collection, we analyze the data in 3 months. We report and disseminate the results by intermediate report, and the final report by the end of the project, meeting with stakeholders, and manuscript writing and publication by the end of the project, and maybe it took some months after that. Our study team are Pasteur Institute staff. We have the PI, he supervises and coordinates overall the project. Me and Hind are involved in the protocol development, ethics submissions, and dissemination with reports and papers. Our colleague Aisha and Iqbal are involved in the data collection and transcription and translation of the interview. Adel Gharbi, he is the data management, and he is in charge of to manage this data and for the storage and to archive all this data. The healthcare centers worker, they are from healthcare centers, and their task is to examine medical examination, patient selection. Concerning the study site checklist, since our study is qualitative study, we don't need laboratory space and equipment, but we need a collection with interviews with audio recorder. We don't need SOP, but we need the data collection forms by the interview guide. That's all. Yes, return. This one. Yes.
Any suggestion? Question? Yes, about milestone 1.1 and 1.2. I don't think that can be in parallel. You have to finish the protocol first
To submit.
and then submit to IRB.
Okay.
So I think it is also the same
in-
suggestion with the previous suggestion from Dorothy, that 2 months can be too optimistic.
But under the umbrella of the protocol finalizations, the milestones of the
I would suggest that you split into 2 different deliverables actually. First, protocol finalization, and the second one is approval by IRB.
Yeah. Otherwise, the month 1 for finalization and the month 2 and 3 for your this one. If you wish to keep it like this. Can you go to the next one? So here again, I think because you're doing a qualitative study, I don't think you can wait until the 3rd month to be doing your analysis. I mean, I always hear this from Dorothy, sitting with her in so many GHRPs, how I've learned qualitative studies. And she always says that they go in parallel. Because you might have to, and this morning as well she said, it's an iterative process. You can't have a horizontal data management plan. It's always a circular one. So which means that if you start collecting data, you actually start analyzing. And then you may have to make changes. So they really go parallel. Maybe you have 1 month extra to kind of finalize your themes and everything, but it doesn't go like this in sequential pattern. And can you come down to the team? Yeah, so I mean, when I look at this, it looks to me more like a quantitative data analysis. Like you separated the researcher who collected, somebody who analyzes, somebody who manages. And I also heard Dorothy say this morning, you are the data collector, you are the analyzer, you are the manager, you're everything. You're in fact the tool yourself. The researcher is actually the tool. So in that sense also, I'm not sure if the understanding is right. This looks more like a quantitative one. Maybe we need to also reconsider this a bit. Maybe.
Yeah, just on similar lines, just one general comment for the Gantt chart. Of course, this was for the exercise, but when you do it for yourselves in your projects, try to break it down into as many small steps as you can. It doesn't matter how many small steps and how big it looks, but if you've thought through each process and the steps, it really helps you to get a realistic sense of time. The bigger, the broader the block, the tendency is to put less time. So you break it down into as many small parts as possible. That was just a general comment to the Gantt chart. Even I had concerns with the way that the study team has been put together. So somebody cannot do protocol development and then somebody else do. I think some of these are all together as a team that you put together and that you continue to. You may delegate tasks, but it's not like the other members of the team are not aware of what the protocol looks like. And then you bring them on only for data collection. I think that's a little unrealistic. The other thing is about data collection. The expertise that you've written is clinical research and biology, but what you're looking for is expertise in qualitative research. Yeah. So you want to make sure that they have also got some training in qualitative research, and that's the kind of thing we're trying to see here, whether they are qualified to do the task that you're assigning to them.
Very good, very systematic presentation. Thank you very much. So the next, yes, please. Yeah, Columbia team.
So we are just going to share a few parts of the project. Remember that we have a huge project. This is done with project planning. It's a specific software, but it's almost the same. So what you can see in the bold lines is the main steps. So we have the study preparation and approvals as first step, the preparation of study sites, project execution with the different objectives that we have, the data management analysis, here, reports and closure. So those are kind of the main steps that we have identified. So then if we split each of them, we are not going to show all the details, but some examples. So for the first, for example, we have the protocol writing, and here we have it in trimesters. So seeking approvals from the IRB, development of the informed consents. So we have also the milestones, which are these diamonds. As an important thing, we have the meetings with local health authorities. Remember that we are going to work with different municipalities, and we need to involve leaders also, and they are going to want to, the local authorities are the ones that are providing the treatment, so we need to meet them. If we, for example, in this second main step in preparation of studies, so we have, for example, of all the preparation of the SOPs and the CRFs, and also the selection of the people, of the field coordinator, the selection of the community health volunteers. So we need to meet with communities and try to select them, the leaders. We need to train them, and we also need to treat them. I think. What else? Well, no, yeah, and train the leaders. Then for the project execution, so we have the different objectives, but I'm going to be concentrated only in some of the activities that we need for the design, implementation, and validation of the apps, and also for the treatment effectiveness, which is the one that we are concentrated now. So for that, some of the activities is we need the definition of the requirements for the apps. Remember that we are going to work with some parties, which are the engineers. So we need to meet them and to do some agreements with them. We need to develop the apps and adapt the mHealth tools. We need to train the staff and the community health volunteers in the use of these tools. We need to validate the apps, and those are milestones, the last. So we need to be sure that the apps are validated and adapted, and we have the team selected of health workers, health field workers, or field volunteers, and the tools implemented. And for the treatment effectiveness, we need, some of the activities, of course, we need to train the community health volunteers in the collection of this information, and we need to enroll patients, and this is going to take us, since we are working in 3 different sites, so it's going to take us at least 2 or 3 years, although we are not going to do all the sites at the same time, but more or less to let you know how it takes. So Mari, do you want to say something about that I missed?
Yeah, no, also if you go before, for example, so we have planned not to work simultaneously, so we went to work first on one side, then when everything, so we have some learning process, then we go to the second and the third one, because it was too much work or do it at the same time.
Yes. Oh, and before going to the responsibility chart, so we, after finishing, another main step is the data management and analysis. And of course, here we are going to do all the activities related with the data collection, the data monitoring and supervision, and the data analysis and those kind of things. And in the report part, we're going to do all the dissemination, probably some meetings with the Secretary of Health, scientific reports, financial reports. That's it. So again, here are some of the members of the team. So we have the PI, which is an epidemiologist. His expertise is in epidemiology, and some of his tasks He does the supervision, the overall supervision of the project and the team, design the study and preparation of SOPs, contact all the contact the local health authorities and other stakeholders, the supervision of the budget, and also all the report to the IRB, scientific report or funding. The project manager, which is Mari, in one of the she also is doing she has to do the monitoring of day-to-day tasks of the study, the monitoring of the project plan and the milestone, the coordination of the fieldwork activities, contact also local authorities and other stakeholders, writing the SOPs, and also is in charge with the PI of the reports, of the different reports. So remember, we also have in each site, we have a field coordinator. So usually there will be physician, nurses with skills for managing teams. They are going to be in charge of coordinating the fieldwork activities, facilitating the access to treatment and follow-up for study participants, supervision of the community health volunteers, problem solving in the field, and also reports to the PI and to the project manager. Sorry. And finally, finally, no, we have more, but we also have the community health volunteers in each. Then they are going to be in charge of conduct the visit to the patients. They are going to collect the data. They are going to facilitate the connection between the patients and the health system, and also they are going to be in charge of the health system referral. So we adapted this checklist to our needs, to the needs of the project. So for example, in some part of the project, we are going to need laboratory space and sample procurement space. We need a microscopy, supplies for diagnosis and for sample collections. We need SOPs, data collection forms. In human resources, when we select the site, we need to be sure that we have the staff hired, the contract agreements, accident insurance, because as Mari says, we are working in very sensitive areas, so we need to be sure of that. We need, of course, to conduct training, as we mentioned before. Oh, and one important thing is that this table, this is only one example of a checklist specifically for health facility, because we will have other different lists with other capacities in our own institution and probably, in the township, in the villages. So in terms of facilities, we need availability of medical doctors, access to internet, which is important for us because we are working with apps. We need to know if the facility is located in the area where we are working, or if not, if it is possible to access. We need them to have the capacity to store the drugs, the temperature, and the pharmacy technician to deal with the drugs. We need equipment available, such as cameras, PCs. We also need physical space for patient. And also, this is very important, since we are working in rural areas, we need to be sure that we have daily transport to municipality headquarters on place, and we need to see if it is safe to enter for study personnel to that area. I think that's it. Mari, something that I'm missing?
No. Okay, so we decided to add some columns because we believe that there are things that we can handle. So, for example, if there is no, let's say, there is not a microscope, we can provide a microscope within the budget lines of the project. But if there is no medical doctors available, there's nothing we can do because who is going to treat the patients? So we added a column that is like if the capacity can be built for us or not, and then that will help us to make the decision making whether to work there or not. For example, if it's located, if you remember at the beginning, we will have like a risk mapping based on vector niche. So then if it's located in the risk township, it's great. If not, if it's easy to access from there to the risk township, maybe that's something we can accept, let's say. So that's the decision making in the table.
Because your study is all about this M app. Should your M app crash? Should you have issues with this application? I don't see anybody in your team, because the whole idea is like your study is so much dependent on collecting the data and transmitting it through there. So we know you have connections with somebody, but is somebody within your team having that kind of a capacity to handle this for you?
Yeah, we didn't include all the...
So for the overall project, there is something called Data Management Core. So they are supposed to be responsible for all of that. But yes, yeah, we didn't put everything there.
I know. We are not even looking for everything. We're looking at some of those key critical processes, because we've been from day one telling we are looking at those key processes, key data that can impact your participant safety and data quality. So in that sense, for your study, you've been talking a lot about MAP. So suddenly I see this MAP is not here in this one. So I worry about it, right? Yeah.
Sure. One more suggestion about the stuff. You mentioned you will also have some stakeholders meetings, stakeholders engagement. If it is possible, I think there should be an expert in stakeholder engagement in the team, or someone that's skillful in that. Sometimes we need that kind of expertise.
Yeah, she was having a conversation just yesterday saying how do we do community engagement, so you need someone with skills. I just had one or two general comments again. One is, of course, you said very apologetically that you used software, but I think that's brilliant, and there are lots of templates that are available online to be able to download. Very useful ones that can be used for Gantt chart preparations. So you put in certain things and it calculates timelines already for you. So it's a good thing to use one of those instead of working from scratch. That was one. Second, I just wanted you to comment on the milestone. So when you say milestone, what do you mean, and how do you use a milestone?
Okay, for us, following the project planning structure, the milestones are like those big, not deliverable, but
so it demarks a point. So it serves for assessing the progress of the project. So it's by this time I should have done this. So that's what why is also a diamond and that has not progress.
Yeah.
So these are usually critical points that have to be achieved at certain dates. And I think, again, putting those into the Gantt chart is, again, a very useful thing. So that's something I just wanted to point out. One other thing I wanted to point out with Gantt charts is when we use this T1, T2, or we use just months, it's sometimes useful to break it down into January, February, March, April, May, or at least time periods, because things like holidays, things like, at this time community is not available, you're not able to think those through when you put in these generic terms. So that was just something to that. Yeah.
Nothing can happen.
Christmas, New Year, for example, then you want to just, prolong your timeline for certain things.
Yeah, and that's one of the good things that had this kind of software, because you can decide how you want to measure, and also if you change something, everything changes. So it's very useful.
It's very useful to use the software. Just another general comment on the team and the skills. So again, just a general question, why do we need that? How does a responsibility matrix help? Anybody can answer, just open to. Why do you think that responsibility matrix
I think for me, the key thing is for you to identify gaps in the expertise that you have and what you need to acquire even before the start. Yeah.
Yeah.
For accountability as well, because for example, when we do the initiation visit or the initiation meeting, everybody has to review the matrix and they sign that this is something I commit to do. So it's also for us a way to keep accountable the people of what they should do.
Yeah, all of those things. It also, I think, so the point I want to make from this is when we write out the responsibilities, it also helps us in recruitment. So if you don't have the expertise and you want to recruit somebody, you know what job they need to fulfill and therefore what expertise they have and therefore what people you should. I know that you as well as the other teams have already looked at the existing teams and then have tried to fit responsibilities, but that's not ideal. So when you begin your thing, you should, I mean, you may find the expertise within your teams, but it's better to begin on a clean slate and say, what do I need? And then do I have the expertise for it? Or then do I need to recruit somebody for it? So don't begin with already existing teams and try to fit roles. Try to think of what do I need? Who's going to be able to fulfill it? What kind of expertise do I need? That also helps you identify capacity building. So you may still have to do with your own team, but then you're able to identify that, okay, this person doesn't have this skill, but I'm expecting him to do it. So I need to build in then capacity building for them. So that's just some.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any still questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. So the last group.
So this is our Gantt chart that we just made, and I'm sorry that we put it in Excel so we can like describe it more clearly. So at the column there is like month for the first month until the 13th month, and then below like these steps, the work plan preparation. That's the steps that we're gonna attempt, and also the description is the deliverable is described in the non-bold words. So the first one that we're gonna achieve is the work plan and preparation. It consists of proposal development, also recruitment of staff and staffing, also budgeting about the stakeholder engagement, research permissions, also SOP and guidelines, and then scroll down. And then the next one we're gonna get is the data collection from piloting tools, also training. Also we mentioned about the secondary data collection, also the survey that we mentioned in our design, and also the strategy that we're gonna achieve as a TB agent. We're gonna do the training in mates. This is the activity that we're gonna do. The first one is training TB symptom screening. It's gonna be done in 3 months, and also the training of health promotion. It's also in 3 months, but like we train, and also the inmates is also do screening to the another inmates. And scroll down again. We also gonna do FGD and also ID, and also monitoring and evaluation. The analysis. Let me go. So in every steps, okay. In every steps in the work plan and preparation, we like giving time like 1 month until the first month to do preparation about the document, and also the second month until the 4th month into the preparation of staff and field work. And then scroll down. For the data collection, okay. For the data collection, we give like 2 months for preparation, and also the strategy is done in 3 until 4 months. This is for the training, and also for the ID, and also for the FGDs. After we collect all the data, we also do the monitoring and evaluation that is done in 4 months. And after that, we do analysis of the data. Scroll down again. Thanks, Diljit. The analysis of the data is done after the ID and also the FGD is done. So we propose like 5 months to do the analysis. It consists of quantitative analysis and also qualitative analysis. And also after the analysis is done, we do reporting in 2 months, and also the dissemination, we also planning in 2 months. So this is the step and deliverable, and this is the PIC, the one who is in charge on those deliverable and the steps. I think that's the general point of our Gantt charts. And next to the PowerPoint. We already presented before. This is the responsibility matrix. So we didn't put the tasks in our responsibility matrix because we already put it in our Gantt chart. So every position has their own job, their own tasks. But we put our criteria of expertise in our responsibility matrix. So principal investigator, she or he need to be IR and TP expert because we are like focusing on the visibility. And then for the co-investigator, they will help the principal investigator to do conduct this the research and also to do stakeholder engaging. This is why we put the health staff in prison as one of the criteria in co-investigator. Also, we put research assistant. They will help in conducting and collecting the data, and project manager will involve in managing the collect data. Project manager is doing the budgeting, while the data manager is doing the managing in data that been collected. That's why we also put the IT. She or he gonna do the qualitative data management. While data collectors, this is the criteria, and this is the criteria of data entry and transcriber. I think that's all for the responsibility matrix. This is the checklist. I think the same like the other country. The documents, this is the documents that we need: SOP, collection form, permission of the study, and also for the human resources, we need to have the staff recruitment, the contracts, the insurance, also the training. While the managing the data, we need computer and software, and also audio recorders for qualitative data. That's all. Mbak Lutfi, you want to add something?
Thank you, Pam. Any questions?
I wasn't quite sure what you have for the responsibility. The principle, the PI, you had something that wasn't very clear. If you could explain.
So the PI will generally like conducting and also managing, supervising the whole research, but in detail, the PI task is described in the Gantt chart. So,
yeah. The previous slide.
The previous slide.
Previous, yes. No, not
the
this.
PowerPoint. PowerPoint, and then in the responsibility matrix, yes.
Okay, this is the expertise one. So we expect to have a principal investigator who is expert in TB and also in
the co-investigator. I mean, co-investigator.
Oh, the co-investigator. The co-investigator will help the PI to conduct the research and also to engage the stakeholder. That's why we put two criteria. The first one is TB expert. It could be like health specialist in TB expert, and also the second one is health staff in prison. they the one who will engage the stakeholder in prison. Because
if
I
understand you, it means that the health staff in prison is also a co-investigator.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Can I help to answer? Because we are conducting IR studies, so for the very first, it is demand-driven, so we need to assess the problem based on the needs, based on the problem in the field. So to formulate the research question, so we need to engage the stakeholder in place to know the context, to know their problem, and so on, and until conducting the research. Maybe we'll learn tomorrow.
I think in your approvals you said that you need to get a permission from the directorate of some ministry of human rights, and so I'm imagining like in 2 months time you get your proposal ready, you get it approved, prison authorities, and so again I think like what Dorothy said, it's better that we anticipate some kind of delays. Okay. This is a very sensitive study. I'm not even sure if your IRB is in the first instance going to say, okay, maybe they send it back to you, ask some questions, then you need to resubmit. So I think a study of your nature in 2 months' time, it's just impossible to 2 or even 4 months' time to get everything in place. So while you are preparing your SOPs and your forms and everything, I think you really need to allow some time. Right?
Yeah. Thanks, Farah. So we put 1 month for completing the protocol, and also 3 months for do the permission, which is from the previous experience we got 2 months in achieving the ethical clearance. So we put now 3 months. Probably we need to put more, but thank you for the.
The other questions.
Said for all others, you also need to kind of apply, because we again see your analysis, you collect the qualitative data, and then 2-3 months later you seem to be analyzing. But your qualitative will go hand in hand, maybe your quantitative can wait. So that seems to be like a cross-cutting issue, so still you need to kind of make some adjustments, because they cannot be like 2 different entities. So we don't want to repeat it. But just look at your chart and then, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So, thank you very much for all good works. And we have still time, Farah. I would like to refer to you to give the feedbacks on the overall, yeah.
So, I think we pretty much are wrapping up with the GHRP. We actually had a session for dissemination, for an activity in dissemination, and we see that this can also be accommodated in the IR. So we didn't want to kind of rush and say give you only half an hour presentation, half an hour, because we see these discussions are enriching and adding value to your proposal. So we decided we kind of change a little bit. So in the last 25 minutes, we would like you to reflect on both the online as well as the face-to-face components of the GHRP, and for you to give your feedback and thoughts. We thought it will be better for us to give you some points for discussion. So let's first take the timing and duration. If you look at the online phase, every week, I think you were charged with one particular module, and it kept moving like that. So we would like to know if that 4 weeks time is good enough a time. You think it's just too much, you should finish in 3 weeks, or probably extend it to 6 weeks. That also brings us to the fact that what would be an ideal time interval? Would you want to finish the online and in 2 weeks time come to face, so then all the recall problems that we are going through will not be there. So we're trying to understand. As you know, on day 1 we told you we are piloting this blended program. Nothing is final, and we are really banking on your valuable feedback to be able to better this whole initiative. So we would like you to think across those lines. Same way, 2 days for online, for the face-to-face. Is that good enough? Or you think, oh, it's too much of group activity, maybe 1.5 days is enough? So we want you to look at the time, number one. Number two is about the teaching methods. I think we used a lot of video and lectures, and already you did give us some feedback on what you liked. So we're looking at, should we have some activities, case vignettes, and Phyllis said, I like the documentary. I think a lot of us like the storytelling. So we want you to kind of let us know in terms of teaching methods on the online phase. What are those methods that are quite interesting? And here in this course, we only are working on your own projects. That's the only group activity that we could think of, and time being short, we are only focusing on that. Do you have another strategy, or you think that this itself is good enough because it kind of makes your proposal much better than what it was earlier? So could we have first some feedback on along these lines? So too much, how much did we teach? Did we teach too much, or did we teach too less in the online? Did you find it clear? You think you need handouts because we only gave you the video. We didn't give you any handouts. Maybe handouts are important. And then also some support systems like technical and facilitation. So we also have some more, but let's go to the previous. Yeah. So first let's focus on this and let's get your feedback. This is very valuable to us. And if you so think you're feeling shy, you feel like a little, then you can even write it out to us. But then we thought it's nice to have this because somebody says something and then another person can pick up on it and then say, so we thought it'll be nice to have this kind of a round. But you all said you want to do the blended program in your own RTCs. So if you need to market it, we need to have a good strategy and a good material, right? So that's what we are working towards.
Okay, so regarding the timing and duration, I think it can be shortened. I think 4 weeks is a lot because actually the materials were very short, very brief, so 2 minutes video, 3 minutes video, so I think it can be shortened. Some reading materials or something to support, because I mean, for me, I have done this facilitating a few times, so it was more like a recap for me. But I'm not sure if somebody who is taking it for the first time will be like ready to do the GHRP, apply the GHRP principles. So I don't know exactly where, but it's just like a general impression. Maybe it would be good if we have, not in terms of timing and duration, but maybe if we think from the beginning that we have to apply it on the project, maybe we can just go through, I think that we already said before. But I think the materials are very nice, I think they're very good to see. Also, it's available on the mobile phone, so I thought that was great. So you don't really need the laptop or anything, so that was very good. That is in terms of timing and duration. In terms of teaching methods, I think I already covered, right? We said something about cases, forums, all of that there. So the face-to-face, I think 2 days is fine. For me, they are fine, because for example, this afternoon, this exercise was very long, for only 1 hour. So I think it's good to consider. I mean, actually for us, we already had some things and we extended the time. So I think 2 days is good, and it's very good to have these face-to-face discussions. I think that's very really gain. I mean, I've done this a few times, but I take a lot of notes for coming back home, so I think that's very, very valuable. And so for me, working on the project is one of the main gains that you get when you do these DHRP courses, coming back and be able to apply it. So in general, I think the materials were very useful. If you have the guidance and work, at least think through it while you do the course, I think that would be a lot of improvement.
Just to clarify, just wanted to ask, how do you think it would work? Because if we say that you do the parts online as well as learning, and then you already start to apply it and start to put it in together, and we say, do we still think of it as a team that's working on it, or then do we say this is individual work and you're working on your own proposals? So I don't know, just from your own experiences, from your own centers, is it something then that two people can get together in their off time and look at? And is that the kind of thing you're thinking through? Or is it individual work then? Just to open it out. Yeah.
I'm not sure that I have an answer for that because, well, I think for the EPP it's more like individual, because there is a e-learning for the EPP course. And they do more like individual, because, you know, getting together, organizing the agendas, maybe it's difficult.
Be that you see individually, learn individually, but when it comes to this application, you already decided you're going to be 2 or 3 of you coming with a given proposal, then maybe is it possible for you to get together a short amount of time to then put things, because this has been a teamwork, and the way we have designed this course is like team of 3 people at the most, and no more than 5 proposals, because we really don't have the time to handle more than that. So you can still read it, go through it individually, but somebody takes the lead, but you already kind of start forming your team and thinking and putting your thoughts together. How does that work for the other sites? Any ideas on that? We see one thing is that we put a lot of reference reading documents. And from experience, not only in this course, in general, we see that nobody reads any document which is so lengthy and all that. So by reading material, you mean the handouts or anything else that you have in mind?
Yes, it's more like a handout. For example, for the IR one, I had to be taking the notes because, you know, like, how can I remember what is passing in the video? So that's what I'm thinking about.
With regards to the reading, yeah, you're right. It's so lengthy. We don't have the time to read everything, but maybe we can get excerpts, like pull out the excerpts that are needed in the document for the particular topic. Reviewing the handouts instead of going back to the videos.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I totally agree about the handouts. I think it's really, really necessary. Actually, what I did was going through each video, trying to copy some of the screens on the, you know, to try to recall a little bit. So I think it would be very helpful. Concern about I mean, we are saying that sometimes we feel that between the different videos and one module and another one, we lost kind of the connection. And then I also feel that if we have all the online phase, 3 weeks, and then I don't know if immediately we have the face-to-face part, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be still difficult to try to connect, for example, the exercise that we did here with the online part. So I was trying to think, what can we do to improve that? So maybe I was thinking that I'm not sure if it's possible to let's say, to try to start with the project that we have since the beginning in the online phase, and maybe, you know, it like provides some homework, or I don't know, something that maybe we can bring to the face-to-face course,
some advances in our project, and here we are just going to, so it's going to be easier to connect with the concepts because we already put in practice, you know, maybe something like that could be helpful to improve the connection between the online and the face-to-face.
Thank you so much. I think it's really very valuable. Then maybe after your exercise and case scenario, it's like we tell you, okay, now could you apply it to your proposal, and then you work on it a little more. But my fear is, to tell you frankly, I don't know how much follow-up had to be done to get you to see the videos. Now, we have to be also finding a balance. Adding more is interesting, but would you be able to do it? Would you need more push then? And then that becomes a bit of a challenge. So trying to find this balance of being quite realistic, that is a bit tricky, don't you?
Well, we have that discussion with Diljit and Dorothy, try to also starting to, at least the skeleton of the proposal, it's really try to fine-tune shaping all those skeletons. But I think it's a good idea that we may try into the direction. It's just, again, a valid point from Farah, how much that we need to spend on that, because then we need to give feedback to the participants. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you need to spend time, facilitators need to give you the feedback, and we are talking about, I don't want 4 weeks, I would like to compress it to 3 weeks, when 4 weeks itself needed so much push. So this fine, we could try, I mean, there's no harm. I think what we could do is, we encourage you to work on your proposal because that makes life much easier and learning better. But if somebody doesn't have the time, they just come like how it is also something that can be handled. But teams that are interested and would like to maximize the use of this face-to-face, you're most welcome. Like, it's not something mandatory, but highly encouraged kind of thing. So we could work along those lines.
In our situation, Charm was in another place with she was in a province. So she had no internet connection for a month. Yeah, so even if she has extra time in the field to do it, sometimes we have limitations like that. And especially it's December, so I don't think we can really define, another person can really define a timeline for another person. So maybe we can have just an endpoint, a start point and an endpoint, and then we can make the timeline ourselves. I don't know how to make that work, but I'm just putting it out there because it's difficult if you have other priorities.
For Diljit is like, once you open up the course, all the modules are available for them all 4 weeks and even later. No. Okay, so I think we may have to work on that, because what she says is also, like, my first week is kind of too hectic, but then in my second week I can really find time and I can finish both my week 1 and week 2. Or maybe even in the third week I could do everything together, so I think we may have to have a little more flexibility. Of course, this becomes challenging for the facilitator because in week 2 you still have to answer questions related to week 1.
I think some of you felt a little rushed because we had this follow-up meeting all planned and it had to fall into place. But with an online thing, yes, you can extend it up to 2 months also and give them time to do it at their pace. Modules typically open out for a week, but they remain open. And then the next one opens out. So people who are fast-paced can move along. But it's open to whoever to do it at their pace, and that's the strength of the online, I think. So it's not that one will close off and that you will not have access to it anymore. You will still have access and you can do it at your pace. We push you, yes, we call and find out you didn't do, are you completing, not completing. But then if you say that, this is how I've planned it out, that's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Somebody called Machi at 5 a.m. in the morning. That's also because of the time difference. One doesn't understand, so, from Indonesia, they probably suited the time, so yeah.
I'm sorry. But I also like that. I mean, I also like the follow-up that you were doing on us. I think that was very, very nice to do. And I was thinking in lines with what Caris has said. I think, yes, it's very important that we can, because some people can move faster for some modules, so I think that's fine. Maybe an alternative to not overburn the facilitator is to have, for example, the forums only for that specific week. And if you want to read the forum, then you can just read what was discussed before. So, because, yeah, thinking from the facilitators, if we are going to be facilitating that, yes. Then, but yeah, things like that. For example, the forum could be available only for that time frame, and then, but the lectures can be open. That could be.
I was just thinking about the time interval and how to manage the online and the offline to make sure that we come back and we can remember lots of the things that we have learned. I'm immediately sensitized as to how I'm able to fit it together. So when I'm going online, I know what things I'm supposed to keep and what things I will not get, but I will only get them when I come during the face-to-face. The things that I need to make connections, can the facilitator or whoever is presenting say that, take note of these. These things are going to feature when we meet face-to-face. These things are going to help you as you are developing your proposal. Then I am thinking about now, but thinking about later as well. I try to make the connections in my head even before I come. Then I know that even if I do online alone, I'm not covered. I still need offline. I still need the face-to-face. I know that is the big deal, but for you, the facilitators, it's a big thing to think through to the end. But I think it will help both the facilitator and also the participants as they sit in. If we do it like that, the time interval might matter, but not that much, because I know that I'm supposed to come and pick these pieces and I will make the connections in my head. In terms of the timing, whilst we were doing the rollout, so there was this catch-up time, right? Yeah, so in between the modules, they say that this is a catch-up time. Whilst we are doing that, then it means the subsequent modules are not opened. Okay. Obviously, I think the emails kept mentioning that some might not need that catch-up time, right? Whilst it's added on to the amount of time, some might not need it. So we could have the catch-up time. However, we open it as soon as possible for those who want to just move through, get it done as soon as possible. In that case, we can make time and not have the whole entire month. But I think it ended up to be 5 weeks with a catch-up, right? Yeah, because first 2 weeks and then there was a web break and then we had, in that time, I think we can do some mop-up and then gain some time over there. That's what I have to say about the timing. Let me ask this. So if we do GHRP, IR, eventually if we split them, then it's going to be like 3 weeks online and then 2 days face-to-face. Okay. I think that should work. Yeah.
So I think this pilot, because we brought all of you, we kind of combined the two courses. In real modules that will be covered online, and then what are the exercises that we propose to do in the face-to-face. And then we can make the link and say, okay, from module 1, you're not yet done. We still will be doing in the face-to-face, and exercise 1, 2, 3 will cover this. So we make that link. So you're also going to think through, because you're going to help us. We're all going to work together and arrive at that ideal agenda on the final day, on the 4th day. So with that, I think it's really very, very important. So we understand how much we learn, how much we can catch up later, what is linked to what. We'll do that. Okay. Next slide. Yeah. So here in the face-to-face, we did have some recap because we felt there were some gaps in the videos. But if we imagine that we are going to correct them and adjust our videos and provide you with the reading materials, that we may not need recap. But how do we handle questions that you had in the online session, which you didn't think of, but you thought of later and you would like to address. So how would that need to be handled? Do you want to have some quick recap sessions, or we don't need at all? It's completely a workshop. We are also looking at what are those exercises that are so valuable that you have a lot of discussions and added value. What are some exercises maybe not so important that can still be done even during the online phase? So we want you to think through, even if you don't have answers or questions right away, maybe tomorrow or even the day after, you can let us know. But let's just quickly focus on this area.
So,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Phyllis.
I was just thinking, so the bit of asking for feedback is perfect, because I think that's some of the strengths for the face-to-face. You cannot just bring a group of people together and assume that learning has happened and immediately Zoom. Start work. I think it helps to break the ice, to know each other so we can do it. However, because by that time we would have tweaked, the questions would not be about the technicalities. Is that usually we can have, from experience, we can have frequently asked questions from different sessions. So we plan for those. And in addition, we just focus on content and areas that we think are hard to get. So for instance, what is IR? We know that people will watch the videos, but they still don't get a hoot about what implementation research is. So we have all these questions that we plan, we plan for, and it should stick to some of the tough areas, not everything, not the technicalities, not whether you had internet access or not. We can do that, but we can do that online as well, evaluations online, so that we spend our time in understanding what the issues are. I think that would be my suggestion for that one. Yeah.
If I can just follow that up, I think that's a very useful suggestion. And so if all of you can think of what are some of those key things from your own learning that you didn't get in the online and that you would have liked to have recapped here, that would really help to plan for us to plan the next step.
Because as I mentioned, I like the way at the end of the videos you just did like 3 points. I mean, I don't think we need to go to many details, but I think that in the material there are so many nice charts and tables that maybe we can pick one of those that summarize like the most important thing and maybe bring here in the face-to-face session. I think it will help to connect also with the online. Yeah.
What we are understanding is like summarizing those key messages from those sessions, plus also allocate a little bit of time for some question answers. So anything that was not clear and that could be clarified, but no more. Yeah? Okay, good.
And I just thought that maybe also, I don't know if it would be possible to have like, for example, to try to recognize what are the questions or the points that the participant had problems in the quizzes, you know, like what are the concepts that are tricky, that they don't get in the first time or something, and try to build on those for the face-to-face.
Could we do some statistical analysis and say how many questions participants seem to fail? Which are those key questions that they didn't get it right? And maybe those are areas that we need to focus, yeah.
Or maybe I'm thinking on the experience of the MOOC in IR. Since the last assignment of the MOOC is a proposal, is kind of a proposal. When we do the review of the proposals, I mean, it's incredible how can we identify, as Phyllis was saying, some concepts that are key and they are not really getting, I mean, the people is not getting the main idea. So I'm not sure if we can maybe include an open assignment or something. Not sure, maybe it's a lot of work for the facilitators, but what I'm trying to say is that it would be helpful to try to, yeah, maybe from the quizzes to try to get what are the concepts that are not clear, or think in the quizzes, maybe we can do some changes to try to identify if the key concepts are getting.
Yeah. I go one step back from Machi's suggestion to now really keep our questions focused on these key messages. We don't even worry about numbers, even if they are only 3, but all those key messages, we target our questions based on those key messages. So that in a way already tells us which are those key messages that are problematic and that need to be reinforced during the online phase. Very good suggestion. I also wanted to understand a little bit about the support systems. When you had either a technical problem or when you had facilitation things, how was it? How did it work? Was it too much follow-up? Was too little? Or everybody's laughing because of the push. Support thing is also important for us for the online thing.
Yeah, we had problems logging in, so we got delayed for 2 weeks. I think the JHRP course is already in its 4th week when we got access. Yeah. Yeah, I had to email IPH, and I got an answer quite late, so yeah, I mean, I got the access quite late. So.
Arrive at that final agenda is like you went through those modules, you went through some exercises. So we would like to also understand from you which of those exercises, like you said, okay, we couldn't finish. It's realistic that you couldn't finish in 1 hour's time. How could we kind of decide on what are the exercises that need to be done here? Maybe some of these you think, I don't even have to be doing it here. Maybe they are so simple that I can actually do it and come prepared. Because we don't have more than 2 days for the online and we need to make effective use of this 2 days time. And so think through. So we'll do on day after tomorrow, we'll do a little bit of mapping, moving around, trying to see and arrive at that final agenda. So please ruminate and come prepared. So we give you like 2 days time to think. Yeah.
I'm not sure, do you think it's possible to have like a case study that goes across the, like maybe when the online course is presenting some of the concepts, the examples can come from that? I don't know, maybe consider that because it will be helpful also. So we don't need to do all the exercise that we do here because maybe we have some clear examples that it's...
I know where you come from because in EPP they have this example that goes through. One of the challenges that we see is if I choose something which is qualitative, all those people with quantitative seem to be very unhappy. So, the variety that we see here in the GHRP course, it's like so, I mean, Dorothy could also comment. We have people coming with laboratory studies, so the variety is so much. Sometimes we give one particular thing and they're not able to relate to it. And so, yeah, it gets a bit complex. Or we have to look at something like a mixed methods, which is able to show everything. And another thing that we see is then they start copying, pasting.
Maybe I was going to say we are thinking for EPPE also because we have the problem that the example that we have is not a good one for all the audiences. So we are kind of trying to build a bank of examples. So maybe it could be no part of the videos, but maybe some additional materials like an example that illustrate the concepts. And so one qualitative, one quantitative, I don't know, it's just an idea, one mixed method. Could be?
Tomorrow we are going to go into IR, so forget GHRP for some time. Get yourself tuned to IR, and then the day after we'll have like a final agenda arrival for both the courses. So we really look forward to your thoughts on that. So if there are no questions, sorry we are late by 10 minutes and we do the same evaluation of the day. The green one is what went well, and still if you think there are things that could be improved and made better for tomorrow and the day after, on the pink one. Have a very nice evening, enjoy shopping, walking, and then we see you sharp at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow. 8:30, yeah? Okay. Have a nice evening.